I always get asked, Doc, what do? I can't exercise because my back hurts, my knee hurts, something's wrong. Well, let me tell you, my answer for all the stuff that ails me has been to get on the bike. I'm Dr. Davis, the Bad MD with Bad Method Fitness, and I want to talk to you today an extended version of how to get onto a bike, whether it's indoors or outdoors. We're going to go through a bunch of stuff today. We're going to talk a little bit about seat position, handlebar position. We're going to talk about what pace we should go at when we're on here. We're also going to talk a little bit about heart rate or our perceived exertion. And then we're going to talk about what kind of cleats or shoes are good for this whole prospect. And then I'm going to show you a little bit about what to do if you don't have something like this and you want to bring your bike indoors. So we're going to try to go through all that. So let's get started. So I happen to find this device online right around the COVID times. Actually, I got a really good deal on it, and I've had to do some upkeep and some maintenance. So don't think that getting a device like this is always going to be just right out of the box, easy to go. So first thing that's most important is if you're going to cycle is we want to make sure that everything fits you so that you're not trying to fit it. And that's really going to be the same about doing a bike fit outdoors, indoors, and even if you go to a club. So in the clubs, they tend to have devices like this or the ones where you can adjust the handlebars up and down, front and back, or what we call fore and aft. Same thing with the seat, is that you'll get an adjustment up and down, and you'll typically get one back and front. You can also, on some of these, actually play around with the seat, but I don't normally recommend that for most people, and you probably should just make sure that that stays nice and flat. But what I'm going to tell you is how to do this to get a good position for you. So in this one, I only have a certain number of adjustments based upon what I'm able to do with this knob here to raise the seat up or down. Same thing more or less with the handlebars on this. What I've found is that most people will do better, especially if your back is bugging you, to try to get the handlebars up as high as you can get them to try to get that posture, that problem off of the back. Now, for some people that don't do well with their back bent backwards or an extension, then it may be better to get it a little bit lower. But I'm going to show you that balance. So one of the easiest ways, I'm going to hop up here onto our pedals. So first I'm just going to pop on here. Now this seat has been positioned for me, and I know that because when I put the pedals at the 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock position, like we're looking at a clock, if you'll notice, the position is right that when I take my eyes and I look down, my knee is lined up approximately with that spindle of the pedal. Now this pedal, I've actually put special pedals on here. We'll talk a little bit more about this, but this pedal, I have a clip on here to make sure that that's a good position for me. Now I can also take something like a plumb line, but here's a simple, easy way. Take your local tape measure, and as you're sitting in a position, maybe get a camera, get a good spot, you'll see that this is about right, that when my hands are into this front position, you can see that my head is looking down pretty much on top of my knee. That tends to be a good position. Now, when you have the ability to bring the handlebars back and forward, you really don't want to be too far forward unless you're practicing riding position, which you can do for a period of time even on a device like this, but you need to make sure that it doesn't irritate your back. The more that you bring the seat forward, the more that you're going to put demands on the knees. The more that the seat is lower, the more that there's going to be demands on the knees. The opposite is true if you go too high, which tends to put more pressure on the back of the knee or the hamstrings, or bringing the seat too far back. Same thing, your hamstrings may not like that. Once we get to the top, you may also, because you end up arching your back too much, you may bother your back. So just consider those as factors as to how to make a good, easy bike fit. Next thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about cadence. So cadence is how fast you're actually spinning as part of your routine. Now, a device like this, it'll actually tell me what my spin rate is. I normally want to keep that spin rate somewhere between about 75 and 95. If I'm really trying to blast for a couple of seconds or so, I may go up into the hundreds, the low hundreds, but I don't want to go too much faster than that. And I don't want to go below 60 on average, because that means that there's too many demands that are being placed onto the knees and the lower body. So with a device like this, it'll actually tell me whether I'm going at a low or a high cadence. I'll also feel it. The other option is to actually have something like a little metronome. So let me go grab that. Okay, so now you can see I have a little electronic device, and on here I have a free application that has a metronome. Now hopefully you'll be able to hear this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start it, and this is at 85. So I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to hit start. Now I'm at about 85. Now we're going to go ahead, we're going to try at a higher resistance, but with a lower metronome. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some modifications in the device, which you may actually hear those as we're going along, but that allows me to get a good ride and make sure that I'm maintaining good resistance, but hopefully not affecting my ability to get a good spin and put too much demand on the knees. So here we go. Raising up the incline. So now I'm at 60. And I can hold this for a period of time, and I prefer to actually get up out of the saddle to do some of these higher intensity areas, because when I'm back on the saddle, this puts much greater demands on the knees. So that's how we adjust our bike in order to work with us and a good cadence. We're going to talk a minute about heart rates. So another important thing that we look at is translating that cadence into what your exertion level is. There's a scale that I'm not going to get into, but it's a relative perceived exertion scale. We typically use the one that's 0 to 10. You can look at that to see where your effort level lives. We're trying for the most part to get moderate intensity of exercise for 150 minutes per week, or vigorous intensity for 75 minutes per week. I use a heart rate monitor, and it connects to my watch. It can actually also connect to this device in this case, and even many of the ones that you can use at a gym will connect. Some devices only work off of the wrist. It may not be quite as accurate, but it's something to consider to at least have information about how fast your heart is going. For those of us that are on medications that slow our heart rate, it becomes hard to use heart rate as your indication of how much work you're getting. In those cases, I recommend that you just use the simple talk test. If you're talking to a friend while you're exercising, you should be able to talk and have a reasonable conversation, but not so low of an activity level that it's really easy to have that conversation. That would be at the moderate level. If you then push to the point where you're actually having trouble and cannot have a conversation with your partner next door, now you've pushed up into the vigorous level. The moderate intensity level is better for most folks, especially if you're trying to avoid injury, but that vigorous level can be helpful by using that in an interval pattern so that your heart is getting that extra push that it needs to try to get its exercise. So those are important considerations about using heart rate. That also matches into your cadence. So if you're going at a very low cadence, but you're pushing pretty hard, you may get up to that vigorous level. It's possible you could get to that vigorous level by being at a higher cadence, possibly with a low to moderate resistance. So play around with those, and that can make a big difference in terms of getting the right amount of exercise and hopefully reducing your risk of strain. Once you go up to that vigorous level, yes, you're helping out your heart, but you're potentially also causing injury to your other structures. So just be careful. Next thing we're going to talk about is cleats and pedals. So we talked a minute ago about the pedals, that this one, if you notice, it has a little toe cage on one side. You can also use these on outdoor pedals, but on the back side, it actually has a little clip device. This actually matches up with the cleats from my shoe. What I like about this is that it allows me to be able to clip in and get a good pull and push throughout the entire pedaling stroke. You can get a decent pair of cleats for probably around $50. They're not designed to last forever. They're not designed for the greatest fit. Unfortunately, this is a much more expensive shoe that I used to use for a lot of outdoor cycling, but I brought it indoors so that I can use it with my indoor bike. So thinking about the option of having a cleat, or at least at minimum having one of these toe cages, no matter where you go, you want to make sure that that foot is strapped into the pedal so that you're getting at least some extent a push and a pull. The cleat gives you a much better push-pull than the toe cage, because the toe cage sits on top and you're still kind of pulling on the way up, but it's not giving you a good general pull throughout the whole lower leg. So consider the shoe and the cleat to get you the best exercise possible. Now I've got my outdoor bike that I brought indoors. You'll notice that it's got a couple of devices, both front and back, and this helps me make the device from outdoors into an indoor bike. This is a specific trainer that has resistance that occurs by pushing a flywheel up against the back wheel. I use my own gears that I control up front in order to change my resistance. There's different types of devices that you can get. Some are more expensive than others. This one is mostly based out of hydraulics or a fluid-based management system, but there's other magnetic ones, electronic ones, all different types that you can use out there to get a really good ride and actually try to match what you would be doing, whether it's indoors versus outdoors. You also notice, I think you can possibly see up front, but I've got this block. So this block is specifically designed so that it fits underneath the wheel, and that makes sure that I've got a good balance between the back and the front to make sure that I'm nice and level. You'll see that this has all my paraphernalia that I use outdoors, and all I have to do is take this bike and go straight outdoors and I can use it for a good ride. If I want to use this more on a regular basis indoors, I probably should change out the tire to get a good resistance tire. There's a couple that are out there that are either made out of Kevlar. There's other brands that specifically just make devices, the tire itself, to be able to take more resistance, and you can change that out pretty easily. So I'm going to get up here and show you what my positioning again should look like. In my 90-90 position, you'll notice that as I'm sitting here on what we call the hoods, this is the proper place where we should be evaluating what our position is. So you'll notice as I look down, my knee is lined up directly again with that spindle. I have special shoes for this type of bike as well, much like I did on my other one, but this one is a slightly different one for road bikes, but you can change out the pedals to whatever you want. You'll notice that I can also get into the position of my aero bars. I can practice that indoors, but if you'll notice, I don't have an excessive bend in my back. I'm also not sitting too tall. So I'm in a good position to be able to practice doing the racing position. I can also make sure that I've got a good position here on the crossbars. So crossbar, hoods, drops, just different names for these different places. Make sure that you've got a good alignment. Make sure that you're all set up to do all the right stuff, whether it's outdoors or indoors. My world to help you as much as I can. Dr. Davis, the Bad MD, Bad Method Fitness, we're here to help you get healthy. I want to make sure that if you've got questions, anything that you need out there, give us a holler. Please chime in. To everybody, peace, love, and everybody, let's get healthy. Take care.